So as we've been talking about in the last couple of videos, countries around the world are halting mail and business with Trump USA. That's sort of today's video, and I want to show you a perspective from other countries. So let's just jump right in.
Online retailers right around the world are in chaos as they try to get their heads around another decision by the Trump administration. The US president is suspending a long-running tax exemption for global retailers. Until now, goods going into the States worth $800 or less weren't being taxed. This so-called de minimis exemption is being axed on August 29. Products will now get the tariff associated with their country of origin or a duty that's ranging from $80 to $200. While the end of this tax exemption is forcing some...
And it's worth mentioning that the $80 to $200 would be per item, I guess. And it could add up very, very quickly, which effectively people just aren't going to order stuff. Or things, could be en route, they arrive, hey, you got to pay a bunch of money that people didn't, plan on. And you're like, what the heck is this? This is sort of the Trump world that we're in. It's just pure chaos.
Retailers here in Australia to reconsider their investment in the United States market. One Brisbane-based brand, Apero, has just made the difficult decision to halt shipping to the United States. Its co-founder, Laz Smith, says that they've been struggling to get information about how these tariffs are going to be applied, including from Australia Post, which they use for postage to the States.
And so this is, I just want to give you an example. This is from Australia. They're saying, some companies are halting shipping, and then also you have various couriers in various countries also halting shipping. So that's Australia. Let's listen to some of India.
About India Post, because it's temporarily suspending postal services to the United States. The move comes after the US administration's executive order, which ends the duty-free exemption for goods valued up to $800.
So again, this is the global trade war. This just hit our news here in Korea because my wife and I are like, I wonder if it's affecting us. And literally it is. Korea Post suspends most US-bound packages as tariff rise. This is our news here in Korea. It just came out today.
다음 주부터 우체국이 미국으로 보내는 소포와 특급 우편 서비스를 중단합니다. 미국의 관세 정책이 소포나
And then I can translate it, but you can also see it literally. It says domestic international mail parcels. Basically, in our news, this is in Korea. I just want to show you guys that we're talking about it too. We're talking about the dates. You can see we're talking about, okay, so how can we send stuff to the USA? $800 or less. These are the different kinds of things. It's like the whole thing is crazy, and I just wanted to show you it's not just like happening to one country. Trump's not waging trade war against just one country. It's multiple countries all at the same time. And then like when you watch news from around the world, it's insane. Like the whole thing's insane. So like, okay, if you want to send from Korea to the USA, you can use EMS, but there's different types of EMS. And then they're talking about how when you send stuff internationally, then each sort of group will have a partnership with another. Here they're using the example of, say, like a UPS partnership. And then they were talking about weight, what would cost more, what would cost less. It gets to be quite complicated, but the problem is that there's not much clarity coming from the USA. And I'm just showing you, like in Korea, there's just from on the ground perspective, like how do we deal with this? So they're saying here, do we send something by EMS? Do we send something by EMS premium? There's a difference in prices depending on the weight of said thing. And then they were talking about, if you're a parent, that's why they kind of have the graphic of a mom, mom sending a mom package to USA if your son or daughter is studying in US. I try not to get upset, but I want to understand that like these are affecting real people. I know sometimes you might feel disconnected from what's happening with the Trump stuff because yes, it's clowny and crazy, but like it really affects real people. So here's another example of on Australia. So the example here I'm giving you in Korea is like, hey, someone just wants to send their package, to their kid for whatever there is over, going on. Here's another one from Australia. Listen to this.
It's tough to make a decision such as stopping to make sales in that particular market, especially when it represents a third of your overall revenue. But in the end, I don't think it's worth the risk of just saying we're going to ship things and hope this is going to work and whatever. I think that reputational damage would far outweigh the lack of revenue we may see in the short term.
Right. And so, in Australia, they're just like, we're just halting shipping right now because I don't want to piss off my customers. That's basically what it boils down to. And I like how he talks about, reputation. And I think what's so sad about this whole Trumpy stuff is you get so used to just, frankly, dumb discussion in USA with Trump. I don't know how to put it. Like, the language is dumb. He says stupid stuff all the time. And you get kind of normalized to that. But when you watch stuff around the world, or intelligent people in the USA, because they do exist. I want to make that clear. It's not that not everyone is dumb in the USA. No, lots of intelligent people in the USA, but Trump is really dragging down sort of the discussion and the dialogue, and it's frustrating to no end. But I want to show you, though, around the world, like, everyone has to deal with this Trumpy problem. This is in Canada.
I think that American end users are going to feel it, and I think small businesses in Canada are going to feel it.
Earlier this month, the U.S. government announced the end of the de minimis threshold, which is an exemption for duties on goods shipped to the U.S. valued under $800. Etsy has announced it won't print Canada Post shipping labels for orders to the U.S. because the carrier can't process tariffs. Sellers will need to ship through other companies and will need to either raise prices or absorb the cost of the tariffs.
They have to use the bigger carriers. They cost more to ship. They're going to charge us brokerage fees, and then they're going to charge us the tariffs. So absorbing all of that is financially undoable.
And I think this is all part of Trump's plan. The way they're setting up the rules is it's really going to really affect small businesses. And we've kind of known this, in USA for a long time, to where it's tough to have a small business. The big, businesses that, like, the Trumpy kind of stuff, try to push you out. You'll see multiple people say, it's want to hear you guys from business owners. This would be a professor in Arizona. Listen to what she has to say.
In fashion space, we're most kind of concerned about is the small businesses, because they're the ones that have the hardest time reacting to it. They're not as versed with global trade policy, and if the U.S. isn't a huge part of their business, but they're selling some to the U.S., they're likely to lose some customers if they ship here, and the customer's goods get held up because the duty wasn't paid on it, and all of a sudden USPS is contacting that customer saying, hey, you owe a duty, you owe an import fee on this good, and that customer is, of course, unhappy that they didn't know. So it's challenging for these individual retailers.
Accepted tax-free, and that is the update that we have coming in. The government, in response, has said that the suspension was necessary because U.S.-bound carriers expressed their inability to carry these postal shipments in absence of any of these mechanisms to collect duties or exchange data.
And the problem they're talking about is, like, no one knows how we're going to collect the money and stuff like that. I think the new system that Trump's putting into place, it shows a couple things. One is they're incompetent. We know a lot about Trump, but another, there's going to be this whole system of just, embezzlement, scams, disappearing money, any kind of way you want to call it. But that's kind of how they're playing it. And a lot of people keep asking the same question. Well, Trump wants to collect all this money. Where is it going? Yes, that is the question. We know they want to do their sovereign wealth fund. That's Trump. So basically create a slush fund, then funnel it to him and his buddies. This is sort of their game. And the more you listen to stuff, I just want you guys to understand the intricacies of this stuff and how we're globally connected. I think it's something that the Trumpers don't talk about or think about enough, how, again, we're all connected to each other. And that's why I like to give you guys a global perspective. Let's watch some more. This is actually interesting. So the Australian news was talking to someone in the U.S.
Yes, it is a bit of a chaotic moment here. Part of the issue is that their postal operators will have to collect and remit the duties, or have to use a carrier to collect and remit the duties, transportation carrier or a qualified party. But there's still a lot of uncertainty around who these qualified parties are. A lot of uncertainty among the postal operators on how to collect and remit the postage duties. So I think you probably have seen that some postal operators have announced that they will suspend transit mail, which is a type of mail where postal operator in one country will use the services of another postal operator to send it on to the final destination. For example, maybe the Philippines Post uses Australia Post to send mail to the United States because Philippines has low volumes and/or infrequent flights. So they'll use Australia Post to send it on. So Australia Post has announced that it will, or it has suspended transit mail that contains goods. So transit mail with packages as of today.
So I want you to see that, like, because I wasn't even thinking about that, right? So if people in the Philippines, because, you know, the schedule works out easier, they use Australian Post to send stuff, but then Australia Post pause and you got this like crazy domino effect because we're all connected. But another way to think about it as well is, you know, there's a system in place over, you know, decades of sort of how we do business. And Trump is like, well, I want to change everything because I want to get my cut. I mean, that's ends up what it ends up being, but it's all completely inefficient. And I know this stuff isn't really reported widely on U.S. news. People have been saying in the comments from the USA, and that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. And you know, I have a hard time knowing which countries are pausing, basically can't send stuff to the USA because there's so many. Let's be honest, there's so many. I've yet to find anyone to compile a complete list. I've just been going through it myself. This is New Zealand. New Zealand post halts to the package to the USA. Posty, I believe Posty's Finland. If you guys are in Finland, let me know. I think it is. And then this one says European Postal Services. I've seen different ones in Asia. Listen to more what this person has to say, though. I think she's like an expert in mailing stuff, which is pretty interesting because we usually don't talk about this subject.
So how it is, at least through the postal system, will be that the executive order has set up a mechanism because at the moment, you know, coming in duty-free, $800, so much that goes through the postal system is less than $800 coming into the U.S., so hasn't really been an issue to collect duties and taxes. So the way the executive order is set up is that the transportation carrier will have to collect and remit. So they will collect from the postal operator, who presumably will collect from the online retailer. There's also a mechanism by which a third-party provider, a qualified provider, so maybe a technology company or a solutions provider, can collect from the postal operator. Again, this is just the postal channel, but ultimately the online retailer will presumably have to pay the duties and, you know, bake that into the overall either product cost or bake it into their shipping costs. And because it will have to be paid before, there will no longer be what's called delivery duty unpaid, where you collect from the recipient, from the consumer.
So you got all that? And I laugh, but I just want you to understand, like, it gets really complicated. And it boils down to what I'm listening to what we're saying is, like, I think there's going to be these third-party, you know, brokers, however you want to call these things, that are going to be, one, busy, and two, I wouldn't be shocked if Trump comes out the list, and this won't make major news, but I'll just tell you how the system works. Trump will be like, you know, his administration will be like, hey, these are the approved list of people who can collect the duties or whatever. And I'm sure there's going to be some sort of fee with that, and it's going to be all the grift. You guys can kind of see how this game is being played out. So I appreciate that this person, you know, really knows the mail system well, you know, kind of ran through all the different parties that are involved with this stuff, but more, you know, hands that have to be in, you know, whatever this pie, you kind of see how everyone's going to take their cut, and Trump wants to make sure that he gets the biggest cut. I mean, that's sort of how I see this playing out, honestly.
So that's why we're seeing some of these, some of the posts. No, Australia Post is not set up to do that. So they obviously have to work with either an airline carrier who is willing to do that, and we have not heard of any airline carrier that's willing to do this. They really don't have the mechanism to collect and remit. So there are, you know, the hope is that some of these qualified third parties, these technology companies, will be that intermediary that can collect.
And you can kind of see where that's going, right? So that's why I mentioned that, well, Trump was, hey, I have this friend who's got this company that's going to solve everyone's problem. And, oh, by the way, they're going to take, you know, 10% or whatever, and then kick me 2 and they'll get 8, or kick Trump 8 and they'll get 2, whatever it's going to be. I mean, I know I make jokes about this stuff, but this is what essentially corruption looks like. I think you guys know this stuff already, where, you know, Trump does a lot of mafia type of stuff, but when you see how it affects real people on the ground, hurting small businesses, you see multiple countries around the world are, you know, suspending mail service to the USA because it's unclear, you know, what's going on. So it's not that just one country can't do business with the USA because Trumpy stuff doesn't make sense. It's like everyone around the world is having the same exact problem, and it's absolutely insane. So just wanted to share this with you from a global perspective. I always enjoy hearing your thoughts. We got a great global community. And thank you again, and I'll catch you on the next video.